Hi, class. Nice meeting you finally. I am teacher Solangel Cabello. My pleasure to have you here. Well, it's not the way I want to have you. That's not the way I want to present my classes, but well, this is what we have, and we have to take advantage of the technologies and all this stuff, okay? So welcome to your first class of oral expression. I'm going to be the teacher of the subject sociocultural topics, but this recording is for oral expression, okay? So I'm going to present the first unit, which has to do with the communication process. I'm going to share my screen, okay? This is something that you already know, but of course I have to give you the details, okay? I hope you can see this. All right, the unit, the topic is the communication process. In this unit, we're going to see, or we're going to study all the elements which participate in the process for it to be a successful process. So we have, what is communication? That's the first thing we are seeing in this part, okay? So the term communication is derived from the Latin word communis, which means common, okay? What you have to keep in mind is that for the communication to be successful, the participants should share the code, the channel. Okay, so that's why those elements should be in common for all the participants. Okay, so as you have said in your audios, communication refers to the reciprocal exchange of information, ideas, facts, opinion, beliefs, feelings, attitudes through verbal or non-verbal means. We can speak with words, written or spoken, or we can speak with our body, our gestures, okay? So between two people or within a group of people. So it is a process for exchanging meaning through symbolic interaction. So communication, the communication process is constantly moving, okay, because it comes and goes. Through symbolic interaction, okay, it means that we communicate by words and by other elements that are not written or spoken. So this is the basic graphic, the basic schema for the communication process, okay? We have a sender or speaker or writer who encodes a message that is going to be decoded by a receiver or a listener or a reader. When this receiver receives the message, he responds, giving a feedback to the sender. The feedback is the most important part of the communication process because it is the sign that the listener understood the message. And this is, okay, so the explanation is this one. A speaker finding himself or herself in a certain situation originates or encodes a message, which is transmitted over a channel. Okay, we need a channel to one or more listeners who then decodes it and respond by sending feedback to the speaker in the form of or visual or verbal signs, overcoming the noise that can be present, or disruptions. Okay, the noise is everything that disrupts the communication. So let's talk a little about each of these elements. The speaker or sender or writer, in the case of written communication, is the person who encodes and sends a message to the expected receiver through an appropriate channel. Appropriate means that it's a channel that is going to be shared by the two of them. And it's an appropriate channel depending on the content of the message. Okay, what is the message? Message is the content of communication and make content verbal or non-verbal or symbolic language. This message is going to be affected by some elements, okay? The perception and personal factors of the speaker and the listener can distort the message, okay? So the intended outcome of communication, the intended results maybe are not achieved, okay, if something disrupts it. Okay, the channel. The channel is the medium through which a message is sent or received. Several channels can be used to send a message. For example, seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, and tasting, all the senses. So we can find visual channels, auditory channels, tactile channels, or those which are combined. And the listener is an individual or a group of individuals who intend to receive, decode, and interpret a message. Okay, so the communication should be active in the way that all the participants are supposed to know that they are participating in a process of communication. Okay, for doing this, okay, for decoding the message and for interpreting it, the listener is supposed to have the ability to do so. I mean, the linguistic ability and the pragmatic ability to understand when the message is not given in a written or oral form or spoken form. The feedback is the return message sent by the receiver to the sender. It is the most essential element of the process since it shows that the message has been understood. The two-way communication has been achieved. This feedback can be verbal or non-verbal, okay? So for example, you say something to someone, this person may not respond with words, but with gestures or with a movement, with a body, okay, with his hands. But this person understood the message and he's sending the feedback not only in words, but with symbols or gestures or whatever. Okay. Here you have two examples of interactions in communication. I would like you to, okay, the idea is that if we were in a face-to-face class or in a online live class, we could participate. I mean, I could listen to your opinions. Okay, the first interaction is a short dialogue for saying something. A person says to another person, "You should see a doctor," and the other person responds, "Are you my mom or what?" And the other person says, "Just saying." Okay, so I would like you to share your opinion of what is happening in this interaction if the communication process took place in a proper way. And the other is a image that reflects greetings. Okay, and as you can see, there are different gestures for greetings, and they are wondering themselves, why are they doing the thing they are doing? You know, when we communicate, there are, I mean, what we are talking in this class has to do with the basic elements that are part of the communication process. But you know, there are other things that are present when we communicate. The first thing is that we have the intention to communicate. When a person speaks or writes or shows something or gives a message, this person has the intention to do so. Okay, he has a purpose. He needs to transmit something to someone. Okay, so that's the first thing we have to consider when talking about communication, the intention. Other thing is the emotional context that is inside the speaker and the receiver. Okay, all the psychological aspects that can affect a message are taking a role in the process, okay? Or also the cultural background, the social background, the educational background, everything is important in the communication process, and also the physical setting we have to, the physical setting in which the process is taking place is also important, because if we have a lot of noises, if we have a lot of disruptions, if it is the proper setting, the proper physical context to a specific topic, okay? All of these elements affect the message. Okay. So communication as a process, I mean, we can say thousands things about communication. Okay, I will try to make it short, to keep it short, even when it's not that easy. Okay, some principles of communication. I'm going to mention some elements or some principles that identify communication as a process. Communication is transactional because it involves an exchange. Okay, an example that is written in here is, if I go to the store to get a soda, I exchange money to the cashier. I give something and get something in return. Communication is the same. Okay, you have to give and receive for communication to happen. I give the message and I expect a feedback. Okay, so that's, in that moment is when I say communication is achieved. Communication is complex for several reasons, because there are many things that participate, as I'm telling you. Okay, first is it is interactive because many processes are involved. For example, what I said, the emotional processes, the social background, the cultural background, the educational background, and all these things that make a person who is, who he or she is. So these elements affect the process. Okay, it is symbolic because symbols are open to interpretation. A message can be transmitted to, for example, to two individuals, and each individual is going to interpret the same message in a different way, okay? Because of interpretation. Interpretation is individual, okay? It has to, it depends on personal aspects. Okay, it is personal and cultural, because one person's culture can add a new or different meaning to a word or gesture. Do you remember the last image of the greetings? Well, it is irreversible, because once I send a message, I cannot take back this message. Okay, the message was sent. It cannot be taken back. It is circular because it involves both original messages and feedback, which is necessary to confirm the communication, the feedback. So it is a circular process. It is purposeful because there is always a reason behind a message, and it helps us meet our needs. Okay, I don't speak just for speaking. Okay. It is impossible to duplicate because each interaction is unique. Even when you want to repeat exactly the same words, the interaction is not going to be the same. Okay, other thing about communication is that it is unavoidable, okay? We are communicating constantly. In every moment of our lives, we are communicating. Even when we don't want to communicate, we are communicating because we are saying that we don't want to speak. Okay, even when we are just totally in silence, we are saying, hey, I don't want to talk to you. Okay, please don't bother me. So you are communicating constantly, even when you do intend to. Okay, you communicate by the way you sit or move, by the way you speak, by what you wear, by your actions. Okay, when we sleep in class, we are saying that we are bored. and I'm sharing with you a phrase, okay? Sometimes it's best to stay quiet. The silence can speak volumes without even saying a word. Communication is continuous because it continues to impact or influence future interactions and shapes our relationships. When someone says something to you that, you know, it was shocking, was very, you know, unpolite, or was very good for you, it causes a mark on you. And maybe when you see that person again in the future, you're going to remember what this person said to you. Okay, so the communication that you had in the past with someone is going to affect the way in which you can see the person, you know, in any moment after that. Another thing about communication is that communication skills can be learned, okay, because they can always be improved. Maybe we have problems for speaking in public, or maybe we have some troubles writing, for example, emails, formal emails, or writing academic discourses. We can learn every time, okay? We can improve. There is always room for learning and improvement. Okay, I said before that there are elements which affect the message, all right? The thing is that these elements have to do with our inner feelings. When we speak, our attitude as speakers affect the way in which we communicate. When we write, the attitude is called tone. Okay, for example, you're reading and you said the author's tone. You don't say attitude. You say attitude when we speak, but when we write, the attitude is called tone. This is for you to know. So in every speaking situation, the speaker attitudes towards self, towards the listeners, towards the, you know, the audience, can affect significantly what this person says and how this person says. So the speaker's attitude towards self. We have an opinion about ourselves, okay? We can consider ourselves successful, unsuccessful, liked or disliked, a person whose opinions are respected or discarded, as competent or incompetent, competent or incompetent in a topic. So the self concept we have about ourselves, of ourselves, can affect the way in which we speak. If we are very, 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 you know, insecure, we're very shy, our voice is going to be weak, low. Our body is going to be, you know, like shrinking. So that message is not going to be taken in a good form. Okay. And the other way around, if we are over self-confident, we can be confident, but if we are over self-confident, you know, in an exaggerated way, that we think we know everything, we are know-it-all. Also, that attitude can affect the message in a negative way. So it's important to keep the equilibrium of the temper. The speaker's attitude toward listeners. When we speak, when we communicate to someone, there is a social status, okay? There is a social relation between these people. Okay, so it can be a seller or buyer, a parent and his or her child, the teacher and the students, the boss or the employee, the creditor or debtor, doctor and patient, doctor, client, stranger or friend. Okay, whatever the relationship is, whatever the relationship we have with other person is going to affect the way in which we see that person. And of course, according to the way we see that person, we're going to direct to them. Okay, so we can feel admiration, sympathy, indifference, love, hatred, patience, impatience, approval, annoyance. Okay, so depending on the feelings we have toward that person, our message is going to be affected. Okay, if we don't feel comfortable with someone, our interaction is going to be, you know, it's not going to flow in a good way. The same happens. All these factors also affect the way the listener accepts or receives the message. Okay, it's not only for the speakers. These elements have to do with the listener as well. Also, when we speak about a topic we like or we don't like so much, okay? So our behavior as speakers is going to be influenced to a greater or lesser degree by how we feel about the subject we are discussing, okay? Whether we believe or disbelieve what we are saying. Without regard to the way in which consider the topic, if it is interesting or boring, pertinent or irrelevant, crucial or trivial. Okay, so the attitude is going to condition the way the message the message is going to be sent. Okay, so when sometimes we have to speak about topics we don't like or we don't feel comfortable with. So we have to look for a way. We have to look for strategies to be understood or not to be so judgmental about a topic. Okay. So we can feel sarcasm, sincerity, playful, serious, dream, anger. We can feel all these feelings when talking about a specific topic. Okay. We have different ways to classify communication. We have the way, the purpose of the message. So the purpose of the interaction. We can have formal and informal communication according to the level of the communication. We have intrapersonal or interpersonal communication. But for this topic, for this subject, we are going to talk about the types of communication related to the way of delivering the message. So we're going to talk about verbal and nonverbal communication. So verbal communication is when we communicate something by words, okay? When the message is transmitted by words, okay? These words can be spoken or written. And the most important thing is that when we communicate, we do it in using a code, okay? That is going to be shared by our audience, by our listeners. The idea is to be understood, okay? So when in verbal communication, they say we have to remember the acronym KISS, keep it short and simple. So when talking about verbal communication, we use oral communication, spoken words are used. It includes face-to-face conversations, speech, radio, okay? We have written communication in which we use written signs or symbols, okay, for communicating. A written message may be printed or handwritten. we know with technologies, we can add another type of communication, with telecommunication. All right. Of course, we use, for example, when we chat using, these applications for messaging, WhatsApp, which is the most universal application for messaging. Even when we write, okay, it's a written communication, but with a lot of orality, because it's as if we, when we chat, it has a lot of orality. It's like if we're speaking face to face with a person, but we do it in a written form. So this kind of communication, we can call it telecommunication. It's not oral totally, it's not written totally, so it's like a mixture of them. So I consider them more oral communication than written communication, because of the characteristics of the message. But that's for linguistics. Okay, look at this image. Look at the face of the girl. I have great news to share. Look at the body position, the body language. Okay, so now is when we are going to talk about non-verbal communication. Some people say that the 70% of our message is transmitted with non-verbal symbols. Okay, our body and our face speak more than our mouth. The best channel we have is our voice, but the best speakers is our gestures. So nonverbal communication is the sending or receiving wordless messages. Okay, there are not written or spoken words. We speak by gestures, body language, posture, tone of voice, facial expression. Okay, so nonverbal communication has to do with all these elements. Nonverbal communication is all about the body language. Okay, it has the following three elements: appearance, about the speaker, clothing, the way the things we wear, the hairstyle, the neatness, the use of cosmetics. When a person looks well, it is going to the message is going to be at least the people maybe are going to pay more attention to a person who looks well. The surroundings, okay, room size, lighting, decoration, furnishing. For example, when we go on a date, if we take that person, if we are taken to a place which is, very noisy, crowded, with maybe dark. Okay, so in this kind of settings, we're not going to feel well. So the communication is not going to be, so successful. And of course, the body language, the facial expression, eye contact, which is very, very, very important when speaking to someone. The voice tone, the volume, the speech rate. Okay, for example, if we speak like this, and we feel like this, maybe the other person is not going to feel well with us. And well, I'm sharing an image with you that with all the elements that play a role in the nonverbal communication. Okay, we have another element which, okay, what all these things I've been talking to you have to do with the linear process of communication. Of course, I explained that the communication is non-linear, okay, it's circular instead. So, but I mean, it's the graphic process. It's the most basic graphic to see the process. But there is an author called Stephen Krashen who proposed a nonlinear model. This model is, he called it the speaking model. Okay, what I want you to do with this. Okay, with all this information I gave to you, I want you to design an infographic. Okay, making a summary of all the information I gave to you. And if you can find more, that's good. Okay, about the nonlinear model of communication, you have it in the material I sent, okay, in the guide. So I want you to read that information about the speaking model. I want you to write it in a short-term form. Okay, if you want to include it in your infographic, that's great for me. If you want to do a mind map or a concept map, making a summary of the speaking model, that's good. Okay. You're going to look on the internet for an interaction, okay, for a conversation, for a dialogue, for a discourse or whatever, which can have, I mean, you are going to find this video, okay, because it's supposed to be a video. I want you to look for a video in which we can find at least most of the 8 elements of the nonlinear model of communication. Okay, and I want you to explain, okay, in this interaction, in this dialogue, in this conversation, we can find this element, if we find this element. If we don't find it, you can act it out. You can make a simulation for showing the model. Okay, that's what I want from you with this activity. Okay, so the infographic and the speaking model represented by a video. Okay, a video. I mean, if you want to record yourself acting a dialogue, okay, that's good. But if you can find a scene from a TV show, from a movie, from whatever, that shows the elements of the speaking model, that's good. Okay, so that's the activity. If you have any questions, you can text me. Okay, I'm going to share written about this information. Okay, if I went back to college again, I concentrate on 2 areas: learning to write and to speak before an audience. Nothing in life is more important than the ability to communicate effectively. Guys, communication is everything. In every area or context of our lives, when we communicate, we can have the world in our hands. We can own the world when we are able to communicate in an effective way. Thank you.